It's a simple choice, a final touch in the design of a room. The decorative paper that covers your walls, adding texture, a splash of color, or a pleasant pattern. We see it as a backdrop to our lives, a silent witness to our daily routines. But what if that silence was hiding a secret? In the 19th century, the most fashionable wallpapers were also the most deadly. Their famously vibrant green pigments, coveted across the Western world, were created with arsenic. This poison slowly seeped from the walls of countless homes, causing chronic illness and death that baffled doctors for decades. We will investigate this dark history of household aesthetics, revealing how a beautiful design element became a silent killer. Today, we pull on this unseen thread and discover the world it unravels. Before the 19th century, the decorated wall was the exclusive domain of the wealthy. For most, a wall was simply plaster, stone, or wood. For the aristocracy, it was a canvas for expensive, hand-painted murals or heavy, woven tapestries that signaled immense status and helped insulate frigid castles. Early wallpapers existed, but as archival trade records show, they were luxury goods, painstakingly block printed by hand, often mimicking the appearance of more expensive materials like brocade or leather. They were beautiful, but they were rare, belonging to a world of inherited privilege, far removed from the common home. Then, the world changed. The gears of the Industrial Revolution began to turn, churning out not only new technologies, but new social classes. A burgeoning middle class emerged, flush with new money and eager to display their newfound prosperity. Their homes, particularly the parlor, became the primary stage for this performance of respectability. They needed affordable ways to emulate the decorative splendor of the elite. And industry, powered by the explosive progress of chemistry, was ready to provide. The call was for color. Bright, stable, and above all, cheap. In 1775, a Swedish-German chemist named Carl Wilhelm Scheele answered. While experimenting with arsenic, he synthesized a copper arsenite compound that produced a green of unparalleled vibrancy. It was brilliant, a shock of emerald and jade that made all previous pigments look dull and lifeless. Scheele's green, as it came to be known, was a chemical marvel. Better yet, it was remarkably inexpensive to mass produce. Suddenly, this radiant green was everywhere. As we trace its path through 19th century patent drawings and product catalogs, we find it in paints, fabrics, children's toys, and even coloring for sweets. But its true calling was wallpaper. Manufacturers could now print vast quantities of dazzling, ornate paper at a price the middle class could finally afford. Looking at surviving samples, we can understand the allure. Designs by celebrated artists like William Morris, a father of the arts and crafts movement, utilized these arsenic greens to create his iconic, nature-inspired patterns. The very walls of the Victorian home came alive with lush, verdant foliage. This wasn't just decoration. It was a statement of taste, of modernity, of having arrived. But the beautiful hero of our story had a fatal flaw. While arsenic was widely known as a potent poison if ingested, it was the primary ingredient in rat poison. After all, the prevailing scientific thought of the era held that, in a solid, pigmented form, it was inert. The danger was unseen, unimagined. No one understood that in damp homes, fungi could metabolize the arsenic, releasing toxic arsine gas into the air. No one considered that the paper itself would degrade, flaking off microscopic, poison-laced particles to be inhaled as household dust. The object of desire, the very symbol of domestic sanctuary, was slowly poisoning the inhabitants from within. The journey had begun, and the ordeal was about to unfold. The mid-19th century was the golden age of Scheele's green. From the grand parlors of London to the modest sitting rooms of Boston, this electrifying color became the definitive hue of domestic aspiration. We can see in sociological studies of the period how the parlor was the centerpiece of a family's social identity, a meticulously curated theater of respectability. And at the heart of this theater was the wallpaper. Its scrolling acanthus leaves, exotic birds, and geometric patterns, all shimmering with that signature arsenic glow, were a testament to a family's modern taste and financial success. The object had reached the zenith of its power, a ubiquitous symbol of civilized life. Yet, as its popularity soared, a silent, insidious epidemic began to take root within these very sanctuaries. It started subtly. A persistent headache. A lingering nausea that doctors dismissed as indigestion. Children, who spent more time indoors and often licked or chewed on things, were particularly vulnerable. Archival medical records from the 1,850 seconds and 60 seconds are filled with tragic and baffling cases. Children wasting away with undiagnosed stomach ailments, adults plagued by debilitating fatigue, skin developing painful lesions and sores. Physicians, working without the knowledge of environmental toxicology we have today, were utterly mystified. They attributed these symptoms to poor sanitation, cholera, diphtheria, or that vague Victorian catch-all for unexplained female ailments, hysteria. The true culprit, the beautiful paper lining the very walls of the sick room, remained an invisible and trusted part of the home. But a few lone voices began to connect the dots. In the late 1,850 seconds, the British physician Dr. William Hines noted a strange pattern among his patients. Those with the most intractable, mysterious illnesses often lived in rooms decorated with the most vibrant green wallpapers. He published his findings in medical journals, hypothesizing that particles from the paper were entering the air and sickening the inhabitants. His theory was met with skepticism and, from some corners, outright ridicule. The medical establishment, grounded in germ theory, found the idea of poison emanating from an inanimate object to be far-fetched. The wallpaper manufacturing industry, a powerful economic engine, mounted a fierce defense. They funded their own experts to publish articles reassuring the public. They argued, correctly, that arsenic was only a danger if ingested in large quantities. The minuscule amount in a sheet of wallpaper, they claimed, was harmless. A leading manufacturer famously declared that one would have to eat several yards of his wallpaper to feel any ill effects. This public relations campaign was incredibly effective. When Queen Victoria had the green wallpaper at Buckingham Palace stripped after hearing of the danger, the move was reported in the press as an overreaction, a royal whim rather than a scientifically grounded precaution. For decades, the industry's denial successfully sowed doubt and confusion, and the beautiful, creeping death continued. The turning point came not from a single edict, but from the slow, undeniable accumulation of evidence. Chemists developed more accessible tests. One popular method, detailed in household advice columns of the time, involved placing a sample of suspect paper in a solution of ammonia. If the liquid turned blue, it confirmed the presence of copper, and thus, highly likely, arsenic. Empowered citizens could now become forensic investigators in their own homes. The most damning evidence often came from autopsies. The 1,879 case of 4-year-old John Henry Jones, documented in a harrowing coroner's report, provided irrefutable proof. After a lingering illness, an autopsy found significant amounts of arsenic in his organs. The source was traced directly to the brilliant green wallpaper that decorated his nursery. Cases like this, amplified by an increasingly sensationalist press, began to shift public opinion. The debate moved from the pages of obscure medical journals to the front pages of daily newspapers. The wallpaper, once a hero of design and symbol of progress, was now being recast as a villain. The ordeal had reached its climax. The beautiful object was revealed to have a monstrous secret. The stage was set for a societal reckoning, a demand for a safer world, and the final transformation of our deadly protagonist. The revelation was no longer confined to the quiet corners of academia. It had exploded into a full-blown public panic. The term arsenical poisoning entered the popular lexicon, whispered in drawing rooms and debated in the penny press. Suddenly, the very object that had signified a family's rise in social strata now marked their home as a potential death trap. We see in newspaper archives from the 1,880 seconds a palpable shift in public sentiment. Wary homeowners, now armed with simple chemical tests, began scraping samples from their walls, treating their own parlors like crime scenes. The market, that ultimate arbiter of industrial practice, responded with brutal efficiency. Demand for green wallpapers plummeted. The beautiful hero, now exposed as a duplicitous killer, was universally shunned. This consumer-led revolt forced the hand of the industry where scientific reason and moral appeals had failed. The economic argument had been won. Manufacturers, facing ruin, scrambled to find non-toxic alternatives. It was a moment of profound reevaluation for the entire design community. Perhaps the most significant figure in this transition was William Morris himself. As a champion of beauty in the home, he had initially defended the use of arsenic-based pigments, echoing the industry's arguments about their stability. But as evidence mounted, he had a change of heart. His firm, Morris & Co., began to publicly advertise their wallpapers as arsenic-free, turning safety from a liability into a key selling point. This was a pivotal moment. Authoritative voices in design were now leading the charge, reframing the very definition of a good product to include not just aesthetics, but well-being. The retreat of Scheele's green marked the end of an era. While Britain was slow to enact formal legislation, relying on market pressure, other nations like Germany and Sweden had already passed laws banning arsenical pigments in consumer goods. New, safer chemical formulations for greens were developed, and though some were less brilliant, the public's aesthetic palette had changed. The allure of that vibrant, deadly hue was broken forever. The wallpaper, our protagonist, had survived its ordeal. It had been stripped of its poison, forced through the crucible of public fear and scientific scrutiny, and was now ready to return to the home, transformed. Today, we take the safety of our homes for granted. We choose wallpaper based on color and pattern, with no thought to the chemical composition of its inks. That simple act of trust is the elixir brought back from this harrowing historical journey. The paper on our walls is a direct descendant of that Victorian crisis. a product born from a painful lesson in material culture. It stands as a quiet monument to the victims of a hidden poison and a testament to the power of scientific inquiry and consumer advocacy to reshape our world for the better. The unseen thread connects our modern, safe homes directly back to the poison parlors of the past, reminding us that even the most ordinary objects can have extraordinary, and sometimes terrifying, histories. So the next time you stand in a room, tracing the lines of a floral pattern or the simple texture of the paper, take a moment. The quiet backdrop to your life is more than just decoration. It is the final, silent chapter of a story of beauty, betrayal, and scientific redemption. A lasting echo of a time when our walls could kill, and the hard-won victory that ensures ours never will.